From comedic chaos
I saw it in your eyes.
to emotional moments,
My real name is Joe, and I've been living with leukemia for 11 years.
these are times when WWE wrestlers broke character in front of the world, starting with Sami Zayn cracking up the entire Bloodline.
I'm doing a little dance.
Hello.
Doing the two-step, right?
Dancing.
I'm in his head doing the dance.
Part of Sheamus's body and such a toll over the past.
Back in 2022, the Bloodline was the most dominant and serious faction WWE had seen in years. But then came Sami Zayn, and everything changed. On an episode of SmackDown, tensions exploded between Jay and Sami, and Roman Reigns had to step in like a disappointed dad. But when Sami grabbed the microphone, the entire segment fell apart.
Hasn't been very oozy.
Roman tried to keep his composure, and Jay had to put his head in his hands to hide his laughter. But that wasn't the only time Sami broke the Bloodline. Earlier that year, Sami told the Usos he could get into Drew McIntyre's head by laying out a picnic and doing a little dance.
So dance you do.
I'm in his head doing the dance. Yeah.
I'll tell you all about it later. Okay?
Yeet. All right.
Stay right here. Stay right.
Jay immediately covered his mouth, trying desperately not to laugh. Then there was the time Sami called Logan Paul the
Giant number 2.
causing both Logan and Roman to break character and smile at each other. Sami's infectious personality showed a completely different side of the Bloodline and gave fans some of the most entertaining television WWE produced that year.
Waffle House. You right?
He just hasn't been
Like, where's my dog? Where's my dog?
very oozy.
My dog. I'm right here. That's my dog. That is my goose.
But if there's one superstar who has a supernatural ability to make people laugh, it's R-Truth. The man doesn't even try. He just exists in his own confused reality, and everyone around him can't help but break into laughter.
What are you doing out here? You're not even in the match. I'm not. You sure?
I am so proud of you. You know, we got a lot of history. You know what I'm saying? Is this your son, dog?
But R-Truth's most legendary moment came on the January 13th, 2020 episode of Raw when he did the impossible and made Brock Lesnar laugh.
You will go flying, Paul Heyman.
I'm not in the Royal Rumble.
But Brock wasn't the only person Truth broke. During his time with the Judgment Day, Truth drove Damian Priest absolutely crazy.
Saw it in your eyes. We've been through a lot together. Money in the Bank, the Women's Royal Rumble, the Judgment Day in your house. We a real family now.
Priest later admitted that Triple H called him out for having a horrible poker face. But karma came swiftly, because not long after, R-Truth made Triple H break on television too by confusing him for Tommaso Ciampa.
You a crafty little genie, huh? Tommaso Ciampa.
But not every character break is funny. Sometimes wrestlers drop the act because something has gone terribly wrong. On an episode of Raw in 2016, Chris Jericho faced Neville in what should have been a standard match. But midway through the bout, Neville went for a Frankensteiner, and that's when everything went south. After taking the bump, Neville told Jericho that he had broken his ankle. Suddenly, the veteran Jericho had to think on his feet. Referee Charles Robinson didn't fully understand what was happening, so Jericho tried to end the match subtly by rolling up Neville. Unfortunately, Robinson only counted to 2. So Jericho did something brilliant. He deliberately got himself disqualified. He shoved Robinson multiple times, and while he was arguing with the referee, the cameras stayed focused on them instead of the injured Neville. It was a masterclass in ring awareness and protecting your opponent, even if it meant breaking character to do it. But while Jericho saved an injured opponent, Michael Cole saved his partner's life. September 10th, 2012 was supposed to be Pat Patterson Appreciation Night. Instead, it became one of the most terrifying nights in WWE history. During a tag team match between the Primetime Players and Team Hell No, something went horribly wrong with Jerry Lawler. Cole was focused on his monitor, calling the action, when he heard what sounded like snoring. For a split second, Cole thought Lawler was doing a bit, but then Cole looked over and saw Jerry's head slumped on the table, his arms starting to shake. Panic set in immediately. Cole hit the mute switch and started screaming for WWE's doctor, who rushed over to find Lawler in full cardiac arrest. The King was having a massive heart attack on live television. Medical staff swarmed the announce table while the match continued in the ring. When Raw came back from commercials, Michael Cole, who at the time was playing a heel character and had been feuding with Lawler for over a year, completely broke character. With tears in his eyes, Cole addressed the situation. When Lawler returned to Raw months later, he was met with a hero's welcome, And the incident had inadvertently turned Michael Cole from the most hated heel commentator into someone fans could finally respect. But 4 years after Lawler's heart attack, WWE experienced another sobering reality check when Roman Reigns stepped into the ring on an episode of Raw in 2018. The big dog had been on top of the wrestling world, main eventing WrestleManias and holding the Universal Championship. But when his music hit that night, something felt different.
My real name is Joe.
When he grabbed the microphone, Reigns broke character and disclosed that his leukemia was back.
And unfortunately, it's back.
The arena went silent. This wasn't a storyline. The man behind Roman Reigns was revealing that his cancer had returned and he had to relinquish the Universal Championship and step away from WWE to fight for his life. The announcement hit the wrestling world like a freight train. Fans who had booed Roman for years suddenly realized they'd been watching a real person battling a life-threatening illness while performing at the highest level. Backstage, wrestlers from both Raw and SmackDown were emotional. His Shield brothers came out on the stage, and Rollins broke down in tears on live TV. Thankfully, Roman's story has a happy ending. He returned to WWE in February 2019, announced his leukemia was in remission, and eventually became the Tribal Chief, embarking on one of the greatest championship reigns in WWE history. But Reigns' announcement wasn't the only time Seth Rollins broke character. WrestleMania 40 was supposed to be Seth Rollins' moment to shine, but when Night 2 kicked off in Philadelphia, Rollins walked into the match at a severe disadvantage. The night before, he'd taken a brutal beating, and his injured knee was barely holding together. Despite Rollins' valiant effort, Drew hit multiple devastating Claymore kicks and captured the World Heavyweight Championship. But what happened after the match is what made everyone emotional. As Drew sat in the ring clutching the title, Rollins, who was clearly heartbroken and in tears, locked eyes with McIntyre and completely broke character to show genuine respect for his opponent finally achieving his dream.
This title into prominence. He's the man.
Of course, Drew's celebration was short-lived, but that emotional exchange between two warriors was the perfect way to kick off Night 2 of Mania. Switching gears from emotional moments, let's turn our attention back to comedy. During his WWE tenure from 2007 to 2014, Santino Marella had one very specific goal, and that was to make everyone laugh.
See, KYJ.
The McMahon and the Donald.
Rotten burger.
It can be called McDonald's.
Manimal, Baptista.
Everyone from John Cena to Rey Mysterio to even Vince McMahon himself struggled to keep a straight face when Santino was on screen. From his tea party with Sheamus and Vladimir Kozlov to his legendary Santino Marella alter ego, Santino proved that sometimes the best moments in wrestling happen when performers can't keep a straight face.
Look at me. I'm a Baptista.
Big mouth, John Cena. John Cena, you people have shown me nothing but misrespect. Man who hides behind a mask, either incredibly ugly or is the Batman.
The Undertaker is perhaps the most iconic character in WWE history, and for 3 decades, Mark Calloway protected that character's aura with incredible discipline. Taker rarely broke kayfabe, rarely appeared out of character, and maintained an almost supernatural mystique. So when a video surfaced of the dead man completely losing his mind at a house show in Vienna, Austria, fans couldn't believe their eyes. The match was a handicap bout, and everything seemed normal until Taker was waiting for the hot tag on the apron. Suddenly, the Phenom poured water on himself and started sprinting back and forth along the ring apron like a man possessed. The crowd went absolutely crazy because nobody had ever seen The Undertaker like this. Years later, on his 6 Feet Under podcast, Taker finally explained what was happening. First, he forgot that even at house shows in 2009, everyone had cell phones. Second, and more importantly, he was teaching Cody and Ted the importance of a hot tag. But even the most experienced wrestlers have bad nights, and for Randy Orton, one of those nights came on Monday Night Raw in 2013. The Viper had been in WWE for over a decade by this point, and had cut thousands of promos, so nobody expected what happened next. Randy and Sheamus were in the ring, both demanding a match against Big Show after the Giant had attacked them at WrestleMania 29. Randy started his promo strong, but then, mid-sentence, the wheels completely fell off. Randy turned completely blank, then turned to Sheamus, and you could actually see him asking the Celtic Warrior what his next line was supposed to be. But while this moment slightly reduced the Viper's aura, what he did at Survivor Series 2016 immediately gave him plus 1,000 aura points. Survivor Series 2016 was brutal for Shane McMahon. Roman Reigns caught Shane in midair during his coast-to-coast attempt and drove him hard into the mat. The spot looked incredible, but Shane landed wrong and was clearly hurt. Medical staff immediately checked on him, and he had to be removed from the match. Shane's wife and children were sitting in the front row, watching their father get injured on live TV. Shane's young son was visibly upset, seeing his dad being attended to by doctors and not getting up. That's when Randy Orton, still in the middle of the match, completely broke character in one of the most wholesome moments in WWE history. Between spots in the match, Randy walked over to where Shane's family was sitting and leaned over the barricade to comfort them. He made sure Shane's son knew that his dad was going to be okay, that it was part of the show, and that Shane was tough enough to handle it. Randy knew what it was like to grow up in the wrestling business, and he wasn't going to let a kid worry about his dad. Team SmackDown ended up winning the match, but the real victory that night was Randy showing that beneath the Viper's cold exterior, there's a human being with a huge heart. June 2007 should have been one of WWE's most talked about storylines. Vince McMahon's character had just died in a limousine explosion on the June 11th episode of Raw, and WWE had planned an entire angle around the incident. The next scheduled Raw was supposed to feature Mr. McMahon's funeral, complete with a coffin and everything, but reality had other plans. On June 25, 2007, WWE received devastating news that would change everything. Chris Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their 7-year-old son Daniel had been found dead at their home in Georgia. The funeral angle was scrapped instantly. Instead, WWE aired a 3-hour tribute show celebrating Benoit's career. But as the tribute show aired, the horrifying truth began to emerge. Reports started surfacing that Benoit had murdered his family before taking his own life. By the time the show ended, Vince and everyone watching realized they had just spent 3 hours honoring a man who had committed an unspeakable crime. The next night on ECW, Vince McMahon had to appear on camera and address the situation, completely abandoning his limo storyline and erasing Benoit from history. It was one of the few times in Vince's career where he admitted he didn't know what to do. WrestleMania 28's end-of-an-era match between The Undertaker and Triple H was the final chapter of a story that spanned 4 WrestleManias. After the match, all 3 legends slowly made their way up the ramp together. Arms around each other's shoulders, they turned to face the 70,000 fans in Miami's Sun Life Stadium and embraced. But the most emotional moment happened backstage. Vince McMahon was waiting for The Undertaker, and when Taker walked through the curtain, the two shared a tearful embrace.
He's an incredible man.
Vince knew what the dead man had just sacrificed for that match. The Undertaker was so physically broken that he could barely walk. The entire experience, from the in-ring war to the emotional aftermath, represented everything beautiful about professional wrestling. These weren't just characters anymore. They were brothers, legends, and men who had given their bodies and souls to this business.
Important person in my life.
On December 13, 2025, John Cena walked to the ring at Saturday night's main event in Washington, D.C. for the final time as an active wrestler. After 23 years, 17 world championships, and countless WrestleMania main events, the man who had been WWE's face for over a decade was saying goodbye. His opponent was Gunther, and for 23 minutes, Cena and the Ring General put on a solid match. But in a moment that shocked everyone, Cena tapped out to Gunther's sleeper hold. The crowd sat in stunned silence. This wasn't the fairy tale ending anyone expected. As Cena sat in the ring processing his final defeat, the entire WWE roster came out. CM Punk and Cody Rhodes walked down and draped their championship belts over Cena's shoulders. Triple H pointed to the screen as a tribute video played. When the video ended, Cena removed his shoes and his sweatbands, carefully placing them in the center of the ring. He walked up the ramp, surrounded by the entire locker room, giving one final salute to the fans before disappearing through the curtain. Even after the broadcast ended, Cody Rhodes stayed near the ring alone, soaking in the final moments. Whether you loved Cena or hated him, you can't deny his impact on WWE's history. And speaking of WWE history, check out this video next about the 10 darkest days that changed WWE forever.